Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Well, hello, Jenny. Welcome to the podcast. How are you this morning?
Hello, good. Thank you, Yuri. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Or actually afternoon your time because of fun time zones.
True. Yes, that's true. And in Europe, it is just roughly about 1 o'clock. So.
Excellent.
Yes.
So I'd like to hear how you describe yourself and what you do.
Okay. I'd say overall, I kind of like to, I've been sort of branding this as my tagline is an artistpreneur. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's not a new term. I didn't come up with it. But it's somebody that is an artist. I'm a musician, a singer, but is also interested in being an entrepreneur and has kind of a blend of both and is interested in growing businesses and kind of, getting out the best practices that you possibly can. I'm working with a startup right now. The name is imusify, and we are, getting started in the music streaming and crowdfunding space, which I can talk about in depth about what we're doing. Building an exciting product. And it's something that I never thought that I'd be doing right now at this stage. So this is part of being an artist. You're sort of taking things on that you didn't really expect before, and you sort of run in an agile way. And I say this a lot because I think to be an artist, you have to kind of understand where you've gone, what you're doing now, and where you want to go, and where your goals are. And and sometimes that can be a really unique path, and that can lead you down multiple different paths as well. But the end goal in mind is to really just lead your best life. And I have a quote that I put on everywhere, and it's from Maya Angelou. And, life is pure adventure. And as soon as we realize that life becomes art. And to me, that is the most important thing. And I always look to artists, I always look to writers for that inspiration first. And at one point, I think I even had on my profile, I had like inspiration seeker, like LinkedIn first started. Yeah. It's just really ridiculous because then I got all these questions like, what's an inspiration seeker? I'm like, okay, all right, I'll take that off. And I'll just use a quote from a writer. I think that might be better. But yeah, so I think it's just a part of, creating new things and creating new environments that you can thrive in. Mm-hmm. That really is what an artist does, and that's what an entrepreneur does when they are starting their business and going to make it successful. So that's kind of what I do. I've got a very diverse background. If you want to go more into depth on that. But it's kind of zigzagged all across the place. So I can't really say, done one thing or...
Yeah, so I'm just going to ask that one big question because in researching what you've done, I always thought that I had a diverse, bizarre background. And it's always nice to meet somebody else who's also been zigzagging all over the place. But I first would like to hear how your journey from voice in college has then led to what you're doing now in blockchain. So I know that's a big question, so I'll let you kind of pick and choose in between those just because I know there's a lot of details in between.
Sure. Well, I think I kind of have an advantage growing up in Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, right before the big tech boom. So, but at the same time, I come from a very musical family, and I was always, promoted and encouraged to learn an instrument and really, be exposed to the arts at a very, very young age. So whether it was going to a concert or playing the piano and taking lessons or taking ballet, I was just always exposed to it. And it's just sort of something that I gravitated towards, throughout my young life and in high school and in college. And it's funny because I am quite tall, and I would always get asked to be on like the volleyball team or the basketball team. And it was just not for me. I just wasn't like into team sports, but I always wanted to, try out for the plays and sing. And that was just more my thing. But at the same time, my dad worked for IBM, and we had one of the first Macs, we had the Apple II. Growing up, and he took them apart at home, and I just saw all this, and it was fascinating to me. And my brother went through computer science in college, so I was just always around it. I've just always been kind of in the tech space, and living literally down the street from Apple was also fascinating, because just to watch the company grow. And then, I went and I pursued voice over journalism when I was at Colorado. And I know, very random. That's just what I gravitated towards. Okay. It just really was. Yeah. I mean, I was in the journalism school, and I was going to go take these classes, and I was thinking I wanted to be a news anchor. And then it just made me really depressed to think about all of these news stories that I'd have to churn out. So I really wanted to do something else and more exciting. And I watched my first opera at Boulder, Colorado. It was La Boheme, and my teacher was in it. And I really just kind of was enamored by all of that just came together on stage, the historical perspective, the costumes, the designs, the sets. I mean, it was really just fascinating for a whole hour. And I found that I also had the voice for it. However, being an artist, you do need to support yourself. I come from a working class family, and they were also in real estate as well. So my mother was in her whole life. So I always learned that and went on many different real estate outings with her. So I gravitated towards that when I was in college. Right after that was my first job. Is where I'm going with that. And all of my friends were starting to move to New York and, pursue the life in New York of auditioning and, trying to make it big. So that's what my goal was as soon as I graduated. And instead of moving to New York and working as a waitress, I actually got a job at a real estate firm. And they asked me when I wanted to start, and I said within 3 weeks, and it happened to be Equity Residential. So, and there was a property manager there for almost 7 years while still singing and taking lessons and, working out all of those details of balancing both. But then I decided to leave New York, and I went and sang in Europe. And we do all of these programs and training, courses when you're a singer. Sometimes you get, you get misdiagnosed, I like to say, from a different range of voice types. So you have to really try that out to see where you fit. Singers are just wonderful people in general, because they are always trying new things. And, so, I went to Europe, and then I came back and went to California. I said, okay, enough of this, Jenny. I've got to settle down and really find a real career. And I went back to Silicon Valley. Meanwhile, I have friends everywhere. I had many different relationships. I think I probably dated more cities than I dated men. But the point was that I decided, okay, the West Coast is where I need to be. That's where my family is. Okay. Let's make a go at it. And I said to myself at the same time, I was like, I really want to work for a startup. I really want to try this entrepreneurial side of me, and see what I can do, what I can bring value-wise to a company. So lo and behold, I didn't end up working at a startup, but I got an opportunity to work at Apple. And I was there like within 2 weeks at a project for Apple Maps. And I always tell people, yeah, I work at Apple. And they're like, oh, really? The retail store? I'm like, yes, thank you. That makes me feel really good.
I bet it does.
Like, no, actually, I was, pretty close to the corporate office. So.
Yeah. Wait, so before you move on further, how did that conversation go? Because I know, so in my own life, when I did make the transition from a more artistic career to a more, let's say, like working for a traditional company, there was a lot of selling I had to do to connect the dots for them between my resume and my experience. How did that first interview go where you were, let's say, transitioning from that? Granted, you had some already like background in real estate, so did that make it easier or more difficult?
So that is actually a really great question, because they were always very interested. Everyone's always interested about my background as being a singer, and what I'm doing with that, and if I'm still pursuing opera. And that did come up in the interview, but there was like 2 rounds of interviews, and I always go from this premise of be so good that they can't ignore you. I think it was Steve Martin that said it.
Yep.
So they gave me this this sort of like aptitude test, like tell us what you can do before we hire you kind of thing. And so I did that, and I just went above and beyond, and I created like what it should have been 1 page. I created like 3 pages. And they were just like so enthralled by the amount of like research that I'd put into this 3-page document that they were like, they didn't even really care about my background, because I knew what skills that I could bring at that point, and that's really all that they cared about. But it wasn't me just selling myself as a singer. It was me selling my thinking. It was selling my artistic way, and like I say, this agile thinking of what is not working, what do we need to research, where are we at now, and where are we going to go forward. And in that space, I was researching queries for maps. As well, it's just point destinations. It was very technical and very boring. It was not exciting at all. But, it was just something that I got to be a part of. And It was because of my experience in New York that I also got hired. So it was my technical experience, as well as this, agile thinking I'm talking about, as well as my experience being in New York. So this is the thing, when you're an artist, you never know what you did in the past is going to come and help you in your next step in your future. And I've read this so many times by different authors and successful, business people, that they never realized that what they had done in the past was going to actually help them in what they were doing and what they're going forward. So it was just completely ironic that I was, in Cupertino working for Apple, and I was actually also working remotely as well. So I still, at the same time, pursued singing while I was working for them.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, and I consistently do that when I can fit it in.
Okay.
But yeah, so to come back to why and how I'm in, blockchain now, is sort of the same way, because I went to do this program in Milan, which is the Teatro dell'Opera di Roma, and I did an internship there, and worked for the theater. And throughout that process, I just realized that, that really is an exciting experience for me to go through, but it wasn't kind of where I wanted to be. I felt like that I could use my skills, my knowledge in a different way. So that's why I started research other programs and other businesses that I could be a part of. And that's when I really came to the idea of, okay, I'm going to start freelancing. I've done all this marketing and PR for Opera Roma, and I put together a video for them and, help them out with like their social media presence. And I go on Angel List and find imusify. And that was, it was last winter. So December, January. And about that same time, of course, I'm listening and hearing a lot about blockchain, and what cryptocurrency is, and of course the fluctuations of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Of course, we're all hearing that, right? You know,
Right.
I mean, until you really dive deep into it, you don't know what it is, other than, okay, Bitcoin's, you know, got the next millionaire, or somebody else has lost money because they sent a transaction, or, you know, so. It just depends. I'm always into doing so much research. I like